Good afternoon, everybody. This afternoon, we're going to do our last lesson in the volcanoes unit that we've been working on. Remember, that's part of our plate tectonics and large-scale systems interactions. So what we're going to do today is we're going to review what we've done so far. My purpose in reviewing it is so that when you get to this last project, you'll know where all those resources are, all those things we've covered, in case you want to go back and look at them. So, like I said, it's part of our plate tectonics and large-scale system interactions. We're learning about how mountains are made and oceans and ridges and all those kinds of things. And in this unit, the one on volcanoes, we're looking at patterns in volcanoes, the locations and the formations. And we learned, before we even started, we talked about some of the vocabulary. We talked about active, dormant, and extinct volcanoes. We talked about lava and magma and the difference between the two, and shield and cone and stratovolcanoes is something that we actually learned while we were looking at the content. So far, we've done a KWL chart. I'm going to show it to you in a minute, but we're looking at, I wanted to know what you already knew about volcanoes. And I also wanted to know, what would your questions be if you lived by one? I actually lived by a volcano on an island in the Aleutian chain out in Alaska. And so I wanted you to kind of get in your head and think, what would I want to know if I lived near one? So one of the first things we did was a map activity where we looked at some volcano maps. And I included the links here in case you wanted to use it to figure out what volcano you're going to work with and where you might find one. And we created that list of questions about what we would want to know. We watched a really cool video, and then we did a presentation. So here's our KWL. Hopefully you hung on to it. If not, I'll let you look at mine. But we talked about what you knew, and then what I would want to know if I lived near a volcano, or any other volcano questions that you had. And last thing we're going to do is talk about what you learned. I haven't done that yet. So here's one of our maps that showed where the volcanoes are in the world, and we looked at another one that showed the US, but we have a lot of different maps that we looked at, and we tried to look for patterns. Remember that we talked about, geez, there was a lot of them right along here, and remember we learned about the Ring of Fire. And then we looked at a presentation and we talked about a lot of different things. For instance, that magma is the hot liquid rock inside of the volcano. And that magma chamber is what that lava eventually flows out of. So magma's inside, lava's outside, and how hot it was. We had a whole presentation on all sorts of different things. And I've included it in here so that you can look at it again if you need to. And we watched this really cool video. I was so excited about it. It showed, look at this, it's showing how a volcano starts and what it looks like inside the earth where we can't see. So it's kind of cool to be able to look at this. And this is a really neat video that showed all sorts of things like that. All right, so those are the things that we've already done. Now, your last project, the one that you're going to do today, you're going to choose a real volcano. Now, you might want to go with Kilauea because it happens to be actually going right now. It actually is active at the moment. Or you could pick one that's been dormant for a long time. You could pick one in Europe. You could pick one anywhere in the Ring of Fire. You could pick the one that I lived near, which was actually called Mount Moffat and was on Adak. So you could pick any kind of volcano, any specific one though, a real one. You're going to describe where it's located, its country, and the city that it's in, or island. Include some pictures, because pictures of them are amazing. Explain why it formed. For instance, is it on top of a hot spot? Is it at a plate boundary? Talk a little bit about why it formed. Why is that volcano there? Describe it using scientific terms, the ones that we learn, extinct or dormant, or active, its eruptions, what type of eruptions it has. Is it a cone or a dome or a stratovolcano? And then give 3 interesting facts. It could be what type of thing makes it unique, or even, what do the locals say about it? Is there some big myth about it? Do they actually have a religion around it, which is true in some places? And then answer your questions that you asked about what would I want to know if I lived near this volcano. We talked about one thing we want to know is it an active volcano? What's the likelihood that there's going to be lava flowing through my lawn, right? I would want to know that if I was going to live near it. So there's a few different ways that you can present this. You can do a Google slideshow, or you could use PowerPoint if you want, but Google is what we normally do on our Chromebooks. You could do a written report. You could do a screencast, which is what I'm doing right now. The difference between the slideshow and the screencast is that with the screencast, you see how there's a little picture of me talking to you, and there could be a little picture of you talking. So that would be a screencast. Or you could make a really cool poster. If you like drawing, you could, you could print out pictures and include it on the poster. You could draw them. You could write different, almost like a graphic organizer that we use. You could write different sections. Just make sure that whether you did a slideshow, or you did a report, or you did a screencast, or you did a poster, I'm going to actually go back. Remember, it needs to have all these things. You need to include all of those, no matter which of those types you pick. I would make sure at the end you go back and say, did I do this? Oh, I forgot to say what kind of volcano it was, or I didn't answer my question. So just double check before you're done. And you can work with your partners, your regular partner that you work with, or you can decide to do it individually. Any of those things. So what are your questions? What do you need to know? I want you to be really successful with this project. You're going to get to use all the things that we learned. And I mean, come on, who doesn't like volcanoes? So you're going to get to use all of that, explore about one particular volcano. And like I said, I want you to be very successful. So what are your questions?